What do we have to see in Thursday's game to make us believe that, hey, something magical can happen in March? Also, what do we have wrong about Tom Izzo so far this season? We have former team manager Jake Schemmel on to talk about it all. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thanks a lot for tuning into Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week, especially here in March Madness. And a little peek behind the curtain before we started recording, me and this beautiful gentleman over here, we were having as close to a panic attack as you could possibly have just about March Madness. Is this team going to make it? Yeah, most likely, probably, but I am mentally weak in March. I do not do well in this month. So on that note, Jake, hey, how you doing, man? We doing okay over there?
We're hanging in there. I thought of a question to start for you.
Please.
What would be more tragic? This being the team that breaks the streak or us being the highest ranked team to ever miss the tournament in terms of metrics? What would be
the tougher pill to swallow? No, it'd be missing the tournament. It'd be missing the tournament because I get that they would be the highest ranked team in the net to miss the tournament. Should they lose tomorrow and should they miss the tournament, yada, yada, yada. But I won't be on this podcast here crying about they were slighted. I would point to the 14 losses they had and be like, you had 14 chances to right your wrongs here. So that's the avenue I would go down. Let's hope we don't have to do that episode. But that's look at the guest over here turning the tables and popping the questions over here. I like this. We're getting nuts over here for March.
Gotta get it spicy.
No, dude, I absolutely love it. So we have to talk about this game. We'll do a quick rundown of Minnesota. This is our third time facing them this season, of course. Split the series. I'm just going to run through this really quick here, Jake. Last game, Michigan State lost a barn burner of a game, just a wonderful game, 59-56. I believe they were 7 of 17 on free throws, and Cam Christie had one of his best games that he has had as a freshman. But since that game, Minnesota, they've lost 6 of their last 9 games. Their defensive efficiency is 128th in the country. Their offense is fine. It's 52nd in the country. And just to pull out a few players here, Cam Christie, he hit 5 threes last time they played Michigan State. Since then, he is shooting 44% from 3 in the 8 games since then. Dawson Garcia is still alive. He's still Dawson Garcia. And then Elijah Hawkins, very up and down since his injury. Last game, he had 6 points, 6 assists, and 3 turnovers against Michigan State. He's had 6 3+ turnover games in the last 10 games. Torvik, they expect you to win. Michigan State 72 to Minnesota 66. Jake, confidence level for this game. I'm going to keep it simple with that question.
I would say it's, I go back to the first stat that you bring up, and they're 6 of their last 9. Taylor Johnson has done a phenomenal job turning that program around, but they ultimately, and, I'll hopefully won't eat my words for saying this, but they are Minnesota and we are Michigan State for a reason. And we have Tom Izzo. And that's where I would encourage people to listen, man, as a former manager for the team, my anxiety is high for this team and I'm worried about what they can do, but I'm confident from a metric standpoint. Defensively, we've done a very good job all year. Yep. Offensively, if we can get the shots to fall, we can compete with anybody. We've shown that, especially within the last few games. We've shown that we can lose to anybody in the last few games. But at the end of the day, we do have Tom Izzo on our sidelines, and this is where he thrives against coaches that are, this is a back against the wall situation for them. They seem like they were about to be a shoo-in for the tournament. I think they should still be in a good spot, but they've shown that they have a long way to go. Yep. And for a team like them, this is a game that they need to win. But this is also a game that Tom Izzo was built to win and has proven that he can do. So I feel confident going in with this first matchup, and legacies are on the line for all these seniors. Absolutely. And I think, they feel slighted about some of their Big Ten awards that they received earlier this week, which is interesting. But if they want to help with those legacies, now's the time to do it.
You get remembered for hanging banners here, not for what conference team you fell on. That's what I said yesterday. I more so screamed it like a deranged lunatic yesterday, but hey, you know what? We're keeping the vibes high today. I'll just say it. But yes, this is a legacy game coming up. And not to throw stones in a glass house, because obviously Michigan State, we've hit the skids here lately, but so is Minnesota. And I know this isn't actually what happened, but it really seems like Minnesota, they beat Michigan State. They're running a little hot. They looked at the bubble. They said, oh my God, how close are we to making the tournament? And then they're like the 34th team out, and they just said to themselves, okay. And then they just went ahead and lost 6 of their last 9. Again, I know that's probably not what happened, but whew, you talk about peaking at that Michigan State game and then kind of, laying up a few stinkers ever since. But that's welcome here because we need a team that's limping into this game like a wounded animal, Jake. Not to run away from the grind. This is a welcome sight, though, in this opening game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they are in a very tough spot with where their season has went. Like you mentioned, that Michigan State win was a huge one for them, turns the season around. Then they go in and lose a close one to Iowa, and they hung in with Purdue, and you think that they've made a turn. And then they've just had a really, really tough last few games. And it's the injury to, is it Hawkins? I always forget.
Elijah Hawkins.
Yeah. Injury to him is tough. And I'd be very worried if in this slump that Cam Christie was shooting bad, because then it would be the prime. They're, lost 6 of their last 9. Christie's shooting 13% from 3, and we're 6 of 7 from 3 going into halftime. And but if he's playing well, you know what you need to do. Like you said, Garcia's Garcia. We know what we have to do there. But ultimately, we have Tyson Walker. We show that we can win with him. But it's going to come from the production has to come from Akins and Hogard as well. Hall is, he's had a few games where he hasn't contributed a ton statistically, but he has played phenomenal effort-wise and defensive-wise. Even in that game against Indiana, I mean, he was doing a great job against, I forget what his name was, Revu or Revenue, whatever his.
Oh, Renault,
Renault. Yeah. He did a great job defending him and everything with the struggles that we've had at the center place. So if we can keep that same level of effort from him, get a Tyson Walker game, but get some consistency out of those 2 guards, I feel very good.
And this is an anecdote and a question that I've been looking forward to asking you for a very long time, because we're going to rewind the clock to last year, the first Big Ten tournament game. Michigan State's a 4 seed. This is great. Ohio State, they're missing players. Freshman point guard, and oh my God, the Buckeyes beat us. Jake, as a former team manager, you know the inside and out of this program, especially Tom Izzo, as well as anyone else possibly could. You shared sentiment with this group chat that we are in, with this text chain that we are in, that this is going to sound crazy, but Tom has these guys right where they want them. This was after what I thought one of the worst losses of the season just wrapped up, and then, we all know the story, they bang out 2 games to get to the Sweet 16. Jake, what do you need to see this time around to really believe that magic could possibly happen this March?
It starts off with a win. It's been more important than ever. And I go back to the sentiment with the 2 guards. I mean, our 4 seniors, specifically within Walker, Hogard, Hall, or I should say those 3 especially. But I mean, Hall has had a Joey Hauser redemption sort of year. The way that he has played in 2024, he started off rough. He had that 0-point game against Northwestern, which was really hard. Ever since then, he has played so phenomenally well, and he is looking primed to end his Michigan State career with a Michigan State-like run. And Tyson Walker has been a Kalen Lucas without the accolades. With what he's doing with the ball, finishing the shots that he is making, he is doing everything without the game results at the end of the day. His stats have been there. He's putting up the numbers. It has just been willing this team to win. And it's been frustrating for AJ. And I get it. Tom Izzo is not an easy person to play for, but he needs to show why he was a preseason All-American, preseason, Big Ten Player of the Year sort of point guard and what he can do there. And if he can dominate the ball, dish, get to the rim and finish, then the ceiling is as high as it possibly can be for this team because of what he can add. He could truly be a post presence for us where we don't have it outside of Malik, his ability to get to the rim and score. If he comes out and attack and is hungry and hungry on the defensive end and locked in, there's nothing that this team can't do.
Especially after the Big Ten Awards where he felt a little slighted that he was only honorable mention. I'm talking about Malik Hall. Of course, he voiced displeasure on social media. Okay, after you do that, on Twitter, you got to come out firing on all cylinders. That's not like an ultimatum or a threat by any means, but like, wow, that'd be a bad look if you just came out and were very passive in this game. So look for Malik Hall to have just an energetic game here Thursday, I would say. So, Jake, I want to ask more about just like the inner workings of what goes on during the Big Ten tournament, March Madness, just for, working alongside Tom Izzo. But first, I hate to do this to you. I need to send you back to where you were at Michigan State, the bench, because I need to talk to people's ears off about Nissan. That is right, gang. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that has pushed it further than the rest. Just like any of the new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. The Utah State Aggies are obviously this week's Nissan Rogue, the team that absolutely surprised us with a powerful performance against New Mexico, giving them their first outright Mountain West title in program history. They say win life, go Rogue, and that's exactly what the Aggies have done here. Or take, for example, the Houston Cougars. They can only be described as an Armada. This top-seeded team is as hardcore as it gets out there, so it's no wonder they're expected to land a top seed in the tournament after their first season in the Big 12. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. And let's drag the one, the only Jake Schemmel back onto the show here because, hey, we're going to get the inside scoop here. And this isn't more so of like kind of how things work. I just want you to kind of temperature check a cliche that's thrown around very, very commonly, especially with Michigan State fans. It said, hey, senior urgency is a big thing when February creeps along, when March creeps along. We're waiting for this team to, quote unquote, turn on the jets because we know that they could possibly have it in them. Is that kind of nonsense, Jake? Or in your experience working alongside some of these players, is there any memories of players just turning the switch and having a different demeanor once March rolled around?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for this group especially, my first year, it was 2014. We won a Big Ten championship, or Big Ten tournament championship, I should say. Seniors were Adrian Payne and Keith Appling. That was a team that was, we were top ranked all year. Brandon Dawson had a huge year that year. Valentine and Harris were starting to come into their own, as well as Travis Trice. And then, that group became the infamous first 4-year run of seniors that did not make a Final Four. Yeah. And almost you saw, Adrian Payne did not take that slightly. Rest in peace, one of the greatest guys ever. Keith Appling did not take it well either, but guys that it really put a chip on their shoulder were guys like Brandon Dawson and Travis Trice. And so you saw, I'll never forget it. It wasn't the Big Ten tournament, but that following year, that was a year I felt like we were not going to make the tournament. I mean, that was the whole thing that year. We struggled so much. We lose to Texas Southern in the beginning of December and go into Christmas break and then struggle throughout Big Ten play. We end up making it to the Big Ten championship, lose to Wisconsin in Chicago. But I'll never forget that opening weekend, we played Georgia, and then we played Virginia in Charlotte, North Carolina, and you could just see a completely different demeanor from Travis Trice. Yeah. And he was not about to be the second one of that group to have a 4-year run with Michigan State and Tom Izzo and not make a Final Four. And so he willed that team, and that's where I go back to legacies. I mean, AJ statistically has had a very good career here at Michigan State. He's up there with all the other Izzo point guards with assists, everything like that. Yeah. But he doesn't have it from a win percentage. And no offense, he doesn't have it from a banner perspective either. You look at someone like a Tum Nairn or someone, I mean, they have the true Izzo Michigan State accolades when it comes to the legacies that they've made from a banner standpoint. And from a guy like AJ, like he arguably should be in those conversations because of the statistics that he's put up there, but it's time for him to hang a banner and turn on that different level, just as like a Travis Trice did back in the day. So trust me, I get it. I still think it's cliche and I saw it firsthand, but there definitely is a different buzz around that office right now and trying to get these guys to focus and make a run and hang something for this program.
And one of the nice parts about having a coach that's been here for nearly 3 decades is that you could talk to a team manager that was there a decade ago, and by and large, most things like probably still go the way they go. I know that I didn't mean that to be a low blow, but
that was mean.
I'm older than you. You're fine. You're a young spring chicken over there. But things that happened 10 years ago, I'm not going to say it's completely identical to what happens today, but you can imagine Tom Izzo probably doesn't like changing things too much. A lot of the same things go on. And one thing that Tom Izzo is incredible at is story throughout his career. You can say what you will about this regular season and everything, is that his record in March speaks for itself, especially in that second game. Just the quick, rapid turnaround prep. From whether it's how he structures your team or what you guys do to just his genius, what is it that makes Tom Izzo so good in these back-to-back games or these games where it's 2 games in 2 days in the tournament, for example? Like, what is the secret sauce here, you think?
I think it comes down to a lot of it being prep. I mean, we almost prep more for that second game than we do that first game.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
so to do a little high level overview how the whole thing works. So, I mean, we will go through and we will break down. So there's every manager will break down offensive and defensive of every game that a team has played. And then there's a group of managers that will go and break down offensive. So we're looking at offensive tendencies, and then they'll break down defensive tendencies. So are they doing more man-to-man? Are they switching ball screens? What are they doing on baseline out of bounds? How are they handling sideline out of bounds? Do they pressure after a made basket? Do they not pressure after a made basket? And then you have graduate assistants that are going down and breaking down individual tendencies. So like a guy like Elijah Hawkins, if he gets a ball screen, is he doing 2 dribbles and pulling up right? Is he then trying to get back to his left hand? Different things like that. But so we're doing that all for our opponent. But so in this case, so we're playing Purdue. Or the winner would be playing Purdue.
Yeah.
We would have everything prepared for Purdue. But let's say it's the NCAA tournament and Purdue is playing someone like who did they lose to last year?
Purdue, Fairleigh Dickinson. Is that
Fairleigh Dickinson? I was going to say
yeah.
Fairleigh. Yes. Yeah. So Fairleigh Dickinson, we would do the same amount of prep on Fairleigh Dickinson as we would on Purdue. And I think that is the huge thing, is that we are doing, if not more prep on the next game, because that 24 hours is so critical. You have to know who, like, you can't know who you're playing and then doing all the prep. So from a manager perspective, it's tough because especially in a 1 versus 16, you're going to have all that prep for Fairleigh Dickinson. When Purdue beats them, you're throwing everything out about Purdue. And it's just all, and I mean, you're talking about hours and hours of prep for a specific team, but that's I mean, that's the standard that he holds everyone to, and that's his preparation. And that's where I feel so comfortable with him at the helm. And despite where this team has been and the things that they've done, his prep when it comes to these different things are the reason why he's Tom Izzo and he's had the success that he's had.
When you guys are watching all that film, breaking it down, I mean, you guys have watched hours upon hours of film. Can you tell pretty early that, like, oh yeah, we're going to have no problem with these guys? Or, I mean, can you get that hard of a read on it, you think, as a team manager?
Yeah, for sure. Because you pick up on different things and you see where we're always going to run. Traditionally, we're always going to rebound and run.
Right.
This time, with a team like this, we're really good in the half court defense, everything like that. We run and push. And so you can just see when a team makes a made basket and they're not getting back, you can immediately see where we're going to start to pick up on, where we're going to be able to beat them in different things. And then, so for my role, I took everything that everyone worked on and built that into the scouting report that then went to the coaches and the players and everything like that. So I didn't see necessarily the individual stuff, but we had some managers that would break down individual moves of a guy. And you could say, hey, when a Dawson Garcia is getting it on the right block, 9 out of 10 times, it's going to be a 1 dribble, spin back to over his right shoulder. If he gets it on the left block, it's going to be 2 crab dribbles and a left hook over the middle. Like, we know exactly what, and that's why I think I told this story last year, but I go back to, if you really are a sicko and want to pain yourself, go back and watch the 2015 Final Four versus Duke when we got blown out, and watch that Colby Walleman was the best center to guard Jahlil Okafor. And that is because he was Jahlil Okafor in practice. So he knew when he caught it on the right block and Gavin Schilling was guarding him, he wasn't thinking, what am I going to do? What do I have to do as Jahlil Okafor? And so it was, 1 dribble right, going over my right or my left shoulder. If I'm on the left block, I'm spinning back and doing a drop step and trying to finish with my right hand. So he knew, like, he could call out what Jahlil was going to do on his next dribble. And so it just comes back to, again, the prep that we put these guys through. And if they can execute it, there's no one that we can't beat in this country.
Sensational. God, that is, and that's only just a super condensed version of, how the sausage is made in March. I got one question on the other side of this break that kind of gets into the nitty gritty of how things play out in huddles during games. But first, Jake, I hate to do this to you twice in the same episode, but need to send you to the bench because I need to talk to people's ears off about Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs as well as a Fire TV stick that you can just plug right into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening day for football or this upcoming college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Now, Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of all the big pro leagues and college conferences too. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the sports world. March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos too. So what are you waiting for out there? Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this one. To learn more, www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. Also, folks, is your car in need of anything, literally anything almost, eBay Motors has got you covered. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you are looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time, or it's your hard-earned money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. So with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Now let's drag him back on. Here's Jake Schemmel, former team manager, and we're going to go rewind the clock back just a few days because, hey, Michigan State down one, timeout against Indiana. They're drawing up the play. Broad question here. What goes on in those huddles for like those last either end of half or end of game situations? Is it a completely rehearsed play? Do they tinker it a little bit? Who's the one leading the charge here? Take us away in that scene, Jake.
It's a lot of yelling.
Okay.
It's a lot of yelling, but it's also, I wouldn't necessarily say it's always a set play. Like it's tailored to the situation. I know the play against Indiana, it drove a lot of people crazy. There was a breakdown on Twitter. I can't remember who posted it. But I encourage you to go find it. And I mean, we cleared out that whole right side for Tyson to drive. And then the Indiana player just made a smarter decision. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's the risk that you're taking. You're hoping that maybe you can get a backdoor off of that play, different things like that. But that was a very well drawn up play. But so it's definitely tailored to the situation. It's tailored to the player. I mean, the way Tyson, in my opinion, I love getting Malik Hall on the block, trying to get a foul, different things like that. But in that situation, with how Tyson played, you have to have the ball in his hands at that point. If AJ's getting to the rack every time and he's finishing, I love having the ball in his hands at that point. But it's definitely tailored to the situation. And, I mean, we have to go back to Izzo had one of his best out of bounds plays last year in the Kentucky game.
Oh, yeah.
On that drive, and then the Malik
pump fake, right?
And everything. Yes. Yeah. Yep. And then even they had that baseline out of bounds play that Malik Hall slipped the screen and had that dunk or I think it was Malik. I can't remember.
I think you're right.
Was.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
But so he's it's not, there's not 3 plays and it's, we're running 1, 2, or 3. It's definitely we're trying to, who's the hot hand? How can we feed them? What do we expect? What do we think they're going to do? And in that, I'll even go back to the Kansas State one. It wasn't the best look, but Joey Hauser did have an open look at the end of that game. It was a little bit of a not disgruntled, but a disjointed play. Yeah. But we had the opportunity to have an open shot there. So it's definitely just trying to find who's the hot hand and where's the weakness going to be. And if I can predict that they're going to do this, hopefully they'll do the opposite. But yeah, it's been a tough stretch from those kinds of plays this year because we've definitely found ourselves in that situation.
And before I ask this question, I just want to preface it with saying, like, I'm not saying that Jake thinks that Izzo is infallible or that he's going to be this propaganda mouthpiece for him. But, like, you know a lot more about the program than any of us do. So when it comes to idiots on Twitter that are very upset at Izzo, myself included, this hasn't been a great season, is there one criticism that you keep seeing that you think is a little or very off the mark that is kind of driving you crazy because you actually know what is going on inside those walls?
I would say it's definitely from my goodness, I can't, sorry.
No, all good. Gotta look good, man.
Hats all over the place. The thing that drives me crazy, and it's not so much, but just people talk about how he's washed and doesn't care. Look at how that man recruits. I mean, this class that came in a little bit interesting, the Xavier Booker thing, I think he's a very bright spot, and I think he'll be very good, maybe a little bit overhyped in terms, but there's definitely been those types of kids in the past. What he's done with Kurtang and then McCullough for next year as well. Yep. And then the guys that he's, Trey McKinney is in a really good
yeah.
I'll leave the recruiting stuff to DK, but like,
sure,
there is nothing that man cares about more than Michigan State basketball right now. And it's never been more apparent. And he cares about the university. He cares about the program, and he wants to win. And yes, there are parts. I mean, we need to start looking into the portal. He knows that. Mm-hmm. Whether or not, actions start happening, that's a different thing. But this man does care and still wants to do it, and still wants to do it right and at a very high level. And he is going to do that. And so that's definitely the very frustrating thing. I mean, lineups have been lineups. There's been stuff that's been frustrating, tendencies, different things like that. I agree. There's been some recruiting stuff, but ultimately the people at the end of the day, like, it's washed, it's going by him. Mm-hmm. He's still here, man. And he's still doing it, and he still cares. That's the biggest thing. And until he goes 8-24 in a regular season, I'm not getting rid of him anytime soon.
Who could possibly just win 8 games in a regular season? That'd be completely embarrassing. Possibly can't happen to any Power 6 teams in this state, at least.
No, it'd be embarrassing from a Big Ten level for sure.
Just absolutely disgraceful, especially with the non-conference games you get to schedule. You figure you'd win almost all of them. I mean, you're certainly not going to drop 2 games to low major teams anyway. From one Izzo to another here. Again, who could we possibly be talking about? Steven Izzo, senior night. Obviously, we've seen the beautiful interviews, the piece that Brandon Quinn wrote for The Athletic. Steven Izzo's story is very well documented. It almost feels like he's a family member to us all that watch Michigan State. But dang it, Jake, like you have really gotten to know him even a little tighter than Michigan State fans that have been inundated with all of his stories lately. So because I hate to do this again, but 10 years ago, like he was like in his early teens, and just like Steven Izzo said, he was always running up and down the halls and the walls of Breslin Center. Any Steven Izzo memories or anything about Steven Izzo that you still don't think that maybe the public knows that they think that you should know about him? Yeah, absolutely. So I will, I'll share a story of, I was in the office and it was, heart of Big Ten season. Izzo walks in and he goes, I need you to babysit Steven. Okay. And it's like, okay, sounds good. And in my head, so what? He's 23. He's 13 at this point. I'm like, okay. All right. And I know your house. It's locked up. I mean, doesn't have security guards, but he might as well. I mean, people know the cars that should be at the Izzo house and everything. And I was like, it's just an interesting situation, but I'm not really saying anything. And he goes, I asked him, what manager he wanted to babysit him, and he said you, because he's his favorite. Oh man. Nice. Okay. Again, I think this is a compliment. I like this a lot. This is, this is back in, and we talk about it a lot. Steven was a butthead, because we have to watch what we're saying. Like, he was a pain in the butt, and he did run around and he caused mayhem all of the time. I will give him credit on a backstory here in a second, but so he asked me to babysit him, and so I go to Izzo's house. We babysit him. We talked about everything from life, everything like that, and then he brought up, speaking of recruiting, he goes, "Do you want to watch some recruit videos?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Let's go do this." So he goes upstairs and he has a box of
videos that fans hand him at games of kids from the Izzone of, here is my high school tape. Please get this to your dad.
Wow. Okay.
And so we watched a kid, I think it was from Ann Arbor Pioneer. It was a point guard that averaged a career average of 7 points and 3 assists per game.
All right.
And I won't say what Steven said about his playing styles, but it's no different than what Tom Izzo says about him. Like it truly was. I was sitting down with Coach, just watching him do all of this. And yeah, it was just spending time with him, playing games all throughout the house, played Xbox downstairs, everything like that. It was just a very, very weird experience. And I'm going to throw Izzo under the bus for this, but I just find it a very funny story. Obviously, I didn't do that to get paid. I didn't do that experience to be a manager to get paid.
Right.
But he comes home and he pulls out his wallet and he goes, $20 bill. He goes, 1, 2, 3, hands it to me. And he goes, that should be enough. And so it was $23 for just about 4 hours of babysitting. And I was like,
oh, that's tough. It's tough.
I didn't know if it was a mental test of like, am I supposed to stand up for myself and say, no, my hourly rate is better. I kept the kid alive. We got pizza. We did, we did all this stuff. Where he goes, $23, that should be enough. And in my head, do I say it's not enough? Do I say it is enough? Do I say, no, you don't even have to pay me? It just kind of put me in a tough spot. And I always tell people that story, and it was just it was a phenomenal experience with Steven, and I love that kid to death. I will appreciate him. Managers never used to get basketball shoes. Weird thing. Don't ask why. It was just a weird thing. We would always get tennis shoes. The Michigan State issued tennis shoes, everything like that. We were warming up to play a manager game.
Okay.
And I was wearing black and orange shoes. I went to Rockford. They were my high school basketball shoes.
Okay.
And he goes, why the heck are you wearing those? And I said, managers don't get basketball shoes. And he goes, what do you mean managers don't get basketball shoes? I said, we don't get manager shoes, or we don't get basketball shoes. Sure enough, he walked in on a meeting with his dad and the equipment manager and said, the managers don't have basketball shoes. They need basketball shoes. He did this at 12 or 13 years old. Sure enough, equipment manager came around. What size are you? And do you want high or low top? And ever since then, managers got basketball shoes. So I got to shout out Steven for that story as well.
Getting results. That's what I'm talking about.
He's a great businessman.
The visual of a 12 or 13-year-old Steven Izzo just slicing up some kid with the dream of playing for Michigan State that averages 7 points a game in high school is going to sit with me for a while. That is hilarious.
Just 2 feet tall, too. I mean, Steven, I love you, but we've seen him play and we've seen his capabilities, and they were just about the same capabilities as when he was that age, and just destroying this kid. And again, at this point, I know Steven very well, but is this a test? Is there cameras in the house? What is going on? How am I supposed to react? I'm supposed to be, screw this kid. He sucks. Like, what am I supposed to do in this situation? So it was a night for the ages for sure. So
that's going to get me. We needed laughs on the show, and thank you very much for providing a lot of that. What a juxtaposition from yesterday's show. If you guys missed that show, don't go back and listen to it. It was not nice in the first segment, but this was great, Jake. Really, really do appreciate having you on, man. I'm very sorry it's been a whole year since we've had you on. I feel like I've done everyone a disservice here, but hey, thanks a lot, man. Anything you want to say or plug before we let you go enjoy the rest of your week here of lovely, healthy March Madness?
No, thank you for joining, thanks for having me on here. I love joining, love being a part of it. You do great work. We obviously talk about this team more than I talk about anything else in my life, and it has caused severe heart palpitations, and I'm ready to go through a heart attack tomorrow night. Or tomorrow afternoon even. Oh God, it's at noon.
No. It doesn't matter. No, like the whole day is going to be a heart attack. Like from the minute I wake up, if I sleep. Yeah.
No, shout out to the managers, man. They're doing a great job. They've been hooping really well this year. It's a lot of fun to see what they're doing. They're doing great. Would love to see this team hang a banner for Steven Izzo. Shout out to Garrett Brenningstool, great guy.
Oh, the GOAT.
Hank. Yeah,
The
Andrew
GOAT.
Hank,
Yep.
both on the staff, director of operations, and then Kara Kay doing all the social media. She's the best.
Look at that. Shouting out.
Those people help support that team more than anyone know, and so they're the best.
On that note, what a great way to end it. Just shouting out those appropriate to shout out. Let's go. Jake, a pleasure. Folks, we will be back tomorrow. We're going to have another fun guest on tomorrow's show. I'm not going to say who it is because you'll all hate me for potentially jinxing the results of tomorrow's game. You probably, if you're a loyal listener of this show, you know exactly who's going to join. I can't wait, but I hope it's a different result. Until then, folks, we'll be back tomorrow afternoon. Love you all. Go.